I cut my London project short and returned to the States, not telling anyone. I'd planned to pick up my younger sister, Summer, from school and surprise her. But just as I reached the back entrance of the auditorium, I heard some students laughing. Summer has no shame, does she? The housekeeper's daughter, only here because the Sterlings pay for her, always acting so superior. Seriously, Pearl is so sweet. Her family takes her in, and she's totally ungrateful. I heard Summer even tried to steal Pearl's spot for the competition. Those charity cases always have some kind of agenda. Summer is my biological sister. Pearl is my family's housekeeper's daughter. And now, the entire school thought Pearl was the Sterling heir, and Summer was a charity case. I pulled out my phone and called a well-known lawyer. I need you to look into something for me. I want to know how my sister's identity was stolen these past few years I've been away. I looked at the message my sister had sent me 2 hours ago. Aubrey, there's a charity event at school today. I'm going on stage to share my volunteer experience. I told the driver to change course. To Sterling Heights Academy. Sterling Heights was the most exclusive private school in the city. When our parents first enrolled Summer, they specifically arranged for privacy protection. Only the principal's office and the security department knew her true family background. My dad said kids shouldn't be defined by their family's wealth. My mom said it was safer to keep a low profile. The event inside had just ended, and students were leaving in small groups. A few girls were chatting. The way Summer was standing on stage just now, I swear. Does she really think she's one of the Sterlings? What Sterling? Pearl herself said her mom used to work for the Sterlings, and the family was kind enough to let Summer study here. Pearl is truly too kind. If my family had someone like that, they'd be out the door. Another girl scoffed. And she dresses so plainly, playing innocent. If it wasn't for the Sterlings, how would she even get into Sterling Heights? Just then, a girl in a white jacket emerged from the auditorium. Someone handed her a hot drink. Pearl, you spoke so well earlier. She smiled gently. Oh, not really. I just said a few words on behalf of our family foundation. You're too modest. The Sterlings are always doing charity work. No wonder you're so well-mannered. She lowered her eyes, her voice soft. Don't say that. Summer might get upset if she hears it. The expressions on everyone's faces immediately shifted. What's she got to be upset about? Your family's already done so much for her. Exactly, and she always gives you attitude. Pearl, you're just too easy to push around. Pearl, Mrs. Miller's daughter. When she was little, she lived with Mrs. Miller in the guest house on the Sterling property. My sister was soft-hearted and shared everything with her. I remember when she first came to the Sterlings, she was timidly hiding behind Mrs. Miller, calling me Aubrey. I found Summer in a corner. She was coming out of a different side door, head bowed. I didn't go over immediately. Summer would definitely panic if she saw me. She hated causing trouble for the family more than anything. I turned and walked to the end of the hallway, stopping a boy who was alone. Excuse me, I'm visiting from another school. I just heard you mention the Sterling Foundation. Is that Pearl's family's foundation? The boy glanced at me. Perhaps seeing I wasn't a teacher or a parent, his tone relaxed considerably. Yeah, she's like, the Sterling's younger daughter, right? I smiled. Are you sure? Why wouldn't I be sure? He pointed to the parking area downstairs. She comes here every day in the Sterling's car. Her inns is full of their mansion, parties, drivers, butlers, everything. He paused, then lowered his voice. But she's pretty low-key, never explicitly says anything. If people call her Miss Sterling, she'll even say, don't be silly. What about Summer? The boy's expression became subtle. Oh, her? I heard Pearl's family sponsors her. Pearl is super nice and always looks out for her. But Summer's pretty stubborn, always acting like someone owes her something. Back in the car, I called my assistant, Jordan. I need you to look up Pearl's social media accounts for the past 3 years, her school forum posts, vehicle access records, and her mother, Mrs. Miller's, usage records for permissions within our home. Jordan paused. Is something wrong? I looked out the car window. Rainwater slid down the glass. At the auditorium entrance, Summer stood alone under an umbrella. Pearl was surrounded by a group of students, getting into the car our family sent. That car was supposed to pick up Summer today. My voice turned cold. Nothing's wrong. Someone's just gotten too comfortable. Pearl was clever, she never explicitly stated anything. She rode in our family car to school. When classmates asked, is that your family car? She'd smile and reply, the driver just happened to be passing by today. Everyone then assumed it was her car. She wore Summer's old cashmere jacket, one Summer had given her. She'd lower her head and adjust the cuffs. My mom always complains my closet is a mess and says if I don't wear things, I should donate them. She'd take photos in the Sterling greenhouse. The caption would read, Mom rushing me home for dinner. The photo would intentionally show a corner of the dining room's crystal chandelier. That chandelier was a one-of-a-kind piece my mom had brought back from Italy. She attended the Sterling Charity Gala. Even though Mrs. Miller only entered with the domestic staff, Pearl found opportunities to stand nearby for photos. The edge of the picture would conveniently show the backs of my dad and the board members talking. Her caption, dragged to another one of these boring adult meetings. The next morning, Jordan sent me the files. I sat in the hotel study, flipping through page after page. On the Sterling Heights forum, an anonymous account had been posting since freshman year. Isn't that sponsored girl too fake? Just because she lives near her benefactors, she thinks she's family? Let's expose the girl who got into Sterling Heights on someone else's dime and then bites the hand that feeds her. The posts didn't name anyone directly. But each time, they'd feature a side profile of Summer, her backpack, or her desk. In the comments, someone would ask if it was Summer. The original poster would reply, I didn't say it was, IYKYK. The phone number registered to that account had the same last digits as Pearl's. There were also class group chat screenshots. Someone wrote, Pearl, why is your family still sponsoring Summer? She doesn't seem very grateful. Pearl posted a woe is me emoji. Don't say that. Summer isn't a bad person, just a little sensitive. She's been close with us since childhood, maybe she just wants to fit in too much. My mom always says we should be more accommodating with her. I scrolled to the end and saw Summer's competition records. Last year, for the National Biology Modeling Competition, Summer had spent 3 months organizing her notes, which she lent to Pearl to copy. Later, Pearl used those notes to explain problems in class. Classmates praised her for being brilliant. She'd smile and say, it's nothing, Summer struggles with the basics, so I often tutor her, and I just happened to organize some notes for her. That year, Summer had clearly won the preliminary round at school. But the final recommendation spot went to Pearl. The reason given, she had better overall influence and was more suitable to represent the school. I stared at that line for a long time. Then I called Summer's homeroom teacher. Who is this? Hello, I'm Summer's older sister. I'd like to understand how she's doing at school. The teacher's voice paused for a few seconds, then warmed. Oh, Summer. Her grades are good, but her personality is a bit introverted. We've been trying to guide her, teaching her to be grateful and not always to compete with Pearl. I let out a small laugh. Compete? Yes, she sighed. Pearl's family has helped her a lot, but Summer sometimes doesn't understand boundaries. For example, with competitions and club resources, she always feels she deserves the best. Why shouldn't she deserve the best? My question stunned the teacher. That's not what I mean. It's just that her family situation is unique, and the school certainly hopes she'll be more stable. Pearl, after all. She suddenly stopped. I finished her sentence for her. After all, she seems more like a sterling child, right? Silence on the other end of the line. I hung up. Half an hour later, I went to the school apartment where Summer lived. To save her the commute, our parents had arranged a small apartment for her near the school, registered under the foundation's name. This was another one of our protective measures. But in the mouths of her classmates, it had become the dorm provided by the Sterlings for a charity student. The moment the door opened, Summer froze. Aubrey? Her eyes immediately reddened. But then, she anxiously looked behind me. Why are you back? Do Mom and Dad know? Did you go to school? Did anyone see you? My heart ached, and I hugged her tight. Summer, tell me first, what are you so afraid of? She stiffened. After a long moment, she whispered, I'm not afraid. I released her and looked into her eyes. Then tell me, why is Pearl riding in our family's car? Her face instantly went pale. Aubrey. Why was your competition spot taken by her? Why does the whole school say you're the housekeeper's daughter? Her lips trembled, and tears finally fell. I tried to explain. But no one believed me. Summer's explanation was very jumbled. When they first started high school, she and Pearl still went to school together. Mrs. Miller had been working for the Sterlings for 10 years then. My mom, appreciating her dedication and feeling for her raising a daughter alone, arranged for Pearl to transfer to Sterling Heights through a foundation program. Tuition, uniforms, and books, the Sterlings covered everything. Summer was happy at first. She felt that having someone she knew at school would at least keep her from being lonely. Later, when classmates asked about their relationship. Before Summer could speak, Pearl smiled and said, we grew up together, almost like family. That sentence wasn't technically wrong, but those who heard it filled in the blanks themselves. The first time a classmate called her Miss Sterling, she didn't deny it. She just shyly said, oh, don't say that, Summer will be embarrassed. From then on, the embarrassed one became Summer. Summer wanted to explain. Pearl, in front of others, would grab her hand, her eyes welling up. Summer, are you upset that I shouldn't be at Sterling Heights with you? I know you don't like everyone comparing us. People nearby would immediately chime in. Summer, don't be so sensitive. Pearl didn't say anything bad. Someone's looking out for you, and you're giving them attitude? Summer argued a few times. Each time, Pearl cried. Over time, everyone came to believe that Summer was the jealous, difficult, resentful one. After listening, I only asked one question. Why didn't you tell me? Summer kept her head down. You were busy with the foundation project overseas then, and Mom and Dad were handling the group merger. I thought it was just a misunderstanding among classmates, and it would blow over. What happened after that? She clutched the hem of her jacket. Later, Mrs. Miller spoke with me. That day, Mrs. Miller specifically came to the apartment to bring her soup. She sat on the sofa, sighing. Summer, I know you feel wronged, but Pearl isn't having it easy either. She never had a father, and she's always been insecure. People only started respecting her when they mistakenly thought she was a Sterling. Summer said, but they're saying awful things about me. Mrs. Miller held her hand. You've always been the most sensible, Summer. You have a mom, a dad, and a sister who love you. What does Pearl have? She's just trying to catch a little break, not steal anything from you. Summer was silent. Mrs. Miller continued, besides, your family always asks to keep things low-key. If you really make a fuss, wouldn't you be causing trouble for Mr. and Mrs. Sterling? Summer was most afraid of causing trouble for our family. So she started to endure it. Listening to her, my chest felt like it had a rock pressing down on it. When Summer finished speaking, her voice was very soft. Aubrey, am I useless? I reached out and brushed the stray hairs from her forehead. The useless one isn't you, it's me. If I had asked earlier. If I hadn't thought keeping a low profile was the best protection. My sister wouldn't have been trapped in this web of rumors for so long. That evening, I returned to the Sterling mansion. Mrs. Miller wasn't in the main house. Last year, she'd been moved to manage the guest house storage, but her access permissions hadn't been fully revoked. I asked Mr. Adams, the butler, to pull up the records from the past 3 years. His face grew increasingly grim. Miss Aubrey, I was negligent. I didn't scold him, he wasn't the only one who had been negligent. The Sterling family was too accustomed to treating Mrs. Miller as an old family retainer. Old family retainer, sometimes, that's just an open door for an ungrateful opportunist. At 1 a.m., Jordan sent me a new set of documents. Pearl had updated her ins that night. The photo showed her sitting in the front row of the Sterling Heights auditorium. Caption, kindness needs to be cherished. See you then. Beneath it, someone commented, Pearl, you'll definitely be on stage for the foundation open house, right? She replied, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. I looked at the line of text and smiled. She had no idea. On the day of the foundation open house, I had a big surprise waiting for her. The next morning, I contacted Principal Davies of Sterling Heights. Principal Davies, this is Aubrey Sterling. The phone line was noticeably silent for a few seconds, then his tone became enthusiastic. Miss Sterling, you're back in the States? Just got back. I got straight to the point. I heard your school has a foundation open house next week. I'd like to combine the Sterling Overseas Education Foundation's Charity Open Day segment with yours on the same day. All faculty and students will attend, and the theme will be educational equity and the boundaries of sponsorship. The principal immediately agreed. I added, I'll be announcing a new round of scholarship recipients and also clarifying past sponsorship cases. Principal Davies chuckled, excellent, that will be a wonderful educational experience for the students. After hanging up, I had Mr. Henderson, my lawyer, contact the school's legal department to submit a partial disclosure authorization. Summer's identity information could be disclosed up to the level of kinship. Security details would remain private. Pearl's sponsorship records could also be made public. Because when she enrolled, she signed a foundation sponsorship agreement which explicitly stated, do not impersonate the sponsor for profit, and do not spread false information that damages the reputation of the sponsor or associated parties. That clause was originally just boilerplate. Now, it would come in handy. That afternoon, Mrs. Miller came to find me. She stood at the living room entrance, carrying a thermos, her face still bearing that meek smile. Miss Aubrey, you're back and didn't say anything? I made your favorite soup. I stayed seated on the sofa. Mrs. Miller, you're very well informed. Her smile stiffened slightly. Everyone in the family is happy, you know. I looked at her. Is Pearl doing well at Sterling Heights? Her eyes flickered. Very well, thanks to the Sterling family's care. Otherwise, my daughter and I wouldn't be where we are today. Is that so? I placed my phone on the table. On the screen was that photo from Pearl's ins. Mrs. Miller's face subtly changed when she saw it. I asked, are you aware that she's been mistaken for the younger Sterling daughter at school? Mrs. Miller immediately sighed. Miss Aubrey, I've tried to talk to her about it. But she's just a child, vanity is natural. Besides, she never explicitly said she was a Sterling, it was all just a misunderstanding by her classmates. And Summer being called the housekeeper's daughter, that was also a misunderstanding? She fell silent. After a while, she said softly, Summer has a gentle nature and doesn't like to explain. In a few years, when everyone graduates, no one will remember anyway. I let out a sarcastic laugh. So you're telling them to wait it out until graduation? Mrs. Miller's eyes welled up. Miss Aubrey, I've been with the Sterling family for so many years. I've given so many years to this family. Pearl never had a father, she's always been looked down upon. She just wanted a little respect. Is it really so hard for your family, who has everything, to grant her a little dignity? I stood up. Dignity isn't something someone else grants you. And stolen dignity isn't dignity at all. Her face instantly went pale. I walked up to her. Mrs. Miller, I'm giving you one chance. By tomorrow, have Pearl publicly clarify and apologize to Summer. Return what needs to be returned, delete what needs to be deleted. Mrs. Miller bit her lip. Miss Aubrey, does it have to be this way? She's still a child. She's 3 months older than Summer. Mrs. Miller was speechless. I continued, and you don't need to cover for her. The forum account, vehicle records, and guest house inventory records, I have them all. The thermos in her hand trembled, spilling a few drops of soup. Miss Aubrey. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. I turned. After that, the offer expires. Mrs. Miller didn't agree. Half an hour after she left, Pearl posted a new in-story. Some people are born with everything, yet they try to snatch away even a tiny chance for someone else to find a glimmer of light. The accompanying image was a black background. Underneath, classmates quickly offered comfort. Don't be sad, Pearl. Is that certain someone acting up again? She's truly disgusting, accepting your family's help and still bullying you. I saved the screenshot and sent it to Mr. Henderson. Add this to the evidence package. At 8:58 a.m., the rain finally stopped, leaving the asphalt outside the Sterling estate slick and shimmering like dark glass. I sat in the study on the second floor of the main house, a cup of black coffee cooling beside a tall stack of blue-bound legal folders. Across from me sat Mr. Henderson, his glasses resting low on the bridge of his nose as he reviewed the final red lines of the breach of contract notice. On the desk, my phone screen lay face up. 8:59 a.m. 9 a.m. The screen remained dark. No incoming call. No text message. Not even an attempt at a negotiated surrender. Instead, my phone vibrated quietly with a notification from Jordan. It was a live feed update from the Sterling Heights Academy internal forum. A new thread had been posted 5 minutes prior from a throwaway account, titled, When Money Buys Silence, Who Speaks for the Innocent? The post was short, malicious, and meticulously crafted to provoke sympathy. Some people think that just because their family built the school's library, they can intimidate scholarships out of existence. If I vanish from school next week, everyone know why. Stay strong, P. We're all behind you. Within minutes, the comments section exploded with defensive fury from students who had swallowed Pearl's gentle, helpless act for 3 full years. Is Summer really doing this? She's literally a charity case. Who does she think she is? Pearl is too sweet to fight back. We need to petition the principal's office. Summer's family works for Pearl's family, right? Talk about biting the hand that feeds you. I stared at the screen for 3 seconds, then tapped the display off. They didn't take the offer, Mr. Henderson observed calmly, adjusting his pen. In my 30 years of practice, Miss Sterling, I found that small minds, given unearned privilege, rarely recognize an exit door when it's opened for them. They mistake restraint for weakness. Then we proceed with full force, I said, my voice measured. No warnings. No settlements. Understood, Henderson replied, closing his file with a sharp snap. I have already filed the formal subpoena for the forum server logs. The court order will hit the school's IT department by noon. As for the property audit. At that moment, a quiet knock sounded at the door. Mr. Adams, our head butler, stepped into the room. His posture was stiff, his silver hair immaculate, but there was a deep, sorrowful tightness around his eyes. He held a leather-bound ledger in his white-gloved hands. Miss Aubrey, Mr. Adams said, bowing his head slightly. We have completed the preliminary inventory check of the guest house and the main mansion's lower archives, as you requested. And it is worse than we anticipated, Mr. Adams said, placing the ledger before me. Over the past 48 months, Mrs. Miller has signed out 37 pieces of high-value designer apparel, 12 pairs of customized footwear belonging to Miss Summer, and 6 vintage luxury handbags from the East Wing storage. All under the pretense of dry cleaning and seasonal preservation. None of them were ever returned. He flipped to a tabbed page filled with high-resolution printed photographs. Last month, Adams continued softly, a rare Harry Winston emerald pendant, one meant to be held in trust for Miss Summer's 18th birthday, was removed from the master safe. Mrs. Miller had the secondary key codes during the annual house cleaning. We found a photograph posted to Miss Pearl's private Instagram story 3 weeks ago. She was wearing it at a private dinner party in the Hamptons. I traced my fingers over the printed photograph. Pearl sat at a candlelit table. Her chin tilted up, the green stone catching the soft light against her throat. The caption read, Family heirlooms always tell a story. A very compelling story, I murmured, coldness lacing my tone. Mr. Adams, have the locks on the guest house changed within the hour? Revoke Mrs. Miller's keycard access to the main estate immediately. If she attempts to enter the grounds, security is to escort her to the gatehouse and hold her there until the police arrive. Mr. Adams bowed low. It will be done immediately, Miss Aubrey. By midday, the skies over Sterling Heights Academy had turned a sullen, bruised gray. Summer sat alone at a corner table in the library, a heavy textbook open before her. Her shoulders were hunched, her golden brown hair falling forward like a curtain to hide her face from the whispers echoing across the room. 2 tables away, a group of senior girls leaned together, glancing at her every few seconds, their laughter sharp and biting. Look at her pretending to study, one girl muttered loudly enough for the sound to carry across the polished hardwood floor. She knows Pearl's mom is coming to meet the principal today to discuss the scholarship. I heard Summer's mother used to beg the Sterlings for extra shifts just to buy her second-hand clothes, another replied with a sneer. And now Summer acts like she owns the place. Pearl is way too nice. If I were a Sterling, I'd have kicked her out of the district months ago. Summer's fingers tightened around her pen until her knuckles turned white. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, panicked breaths. She didn't look up. She had learned over 3 long years that looking up only invited more venom, more righteous indignation from people who believed they were defending a saint. Just endure it, she told herself, the voice in her head sounding terribly like Mrs. Miller's soothing, suffocating tone. It's almost over. Just wait until graduation. Excuse me. A cool, authoritative voice broke through the low hum of the library. The girls at the neighboring table froze. Summer jerked her head up. Standing at the end of the aisle was a woman in a sharply tailored ivory wool coat, her long dark hair swept back, her presence commanding an immediate, breathless silence in the room. I walked slowly towards Summer's table, my heels striking the floor with measured, unhurried clicks. The student stared, caught off guard by the sheer air of quiet authority radiating from me. I didn't look like a parent, nor did I look like a teacher. I stopped beside Summer's chair, resting a hand gently on her shoulder. I felt her entire body trembling. Aubrey, she whispered, her voice cracking. What are you doing here? I brought you your lunch, I said softly, placing a sleek black insulated box on her table. Then, slowly, I turned my gaze toward the group of girls 2 tables away. My eyes swept over them, cool, analytical, completely devoid of warmth. The girl who had been speaking loudest flushed dark red, shifting uncomfortably under my gaze. Who are you? She stammered, trying to maintain her bravado. Visitors aren't allowed in the academic wing without a pass. I don't need a pass, I replied smoothly. My name is Aubrey Sterling. The room went dead silent. The faint hum of the air conditioning seemed to grow deafeningly loud. The girls exchanged bewildered, terrified glances. Sterling, one of them whispered. Wait. Is she related to Pearl? Pearl doesn't have an older sister, another muttered nervously. Does she? I gave them a thin, merciless smile. You seem terribly confused about the management of this school, as well as the identities of the people who pay for your library books. I suggest you spend less time lingering in forums and more time preparing for your midterm examinations. Because starting next week, the standards at Sterling Heights will be enforced very, very strictly. Without waiting for a response, I picked up Summer's backpack, draped her dark coat over my arm, and took her hand. Come on, Summer, I said softly. We have a fitting. Summer let herself be led out of the library, her wide eyes fixed on my profile. As we walked down the long, oak-paneled hallway, past row upon row of glass display cases, students stopped and stared. Near the main entrance, Pearl stood surrounded by her usual entourage. She was laughing softly at something a boy had said, wearing an oversized pastel cashmere cardigan, a cardigan I instantly recognized as part of Summer's freshman winter collection, purchased in Milan. When Pearl saw us, her smile faltered. Her eyes widened slightly as her gaze fell upon me, then landed on our joined hands. For a fraction of a second, raw, naked panic flashed across Pearl's delicate features. She opened her mouth as if to speak, stepping forward. Summer. I didn't even slow my pace. I walked right past her, my coat brushing against hers, treating her as if she were nothing more than a shadow painted on the wall. In the private VIP suite of the city's premier atelier, tailors worked in hushed efficiency, pinning the hem of a breathtaking midnight blue silk gown tailored specifically for Summer. Summer stood on the raised wooden pedestal, looking at her reflection in the full-length gilded mirrors. The dress was elegant, quiet, and impossibly refined, highlighting her slender frame and graceful neck. Yet her expression remained uncertain, her hands fluttering nervously at her sides. I sat on the velvet sofa nearby, sipping tea while Mr. Henderson reviewed Documents on his tablet. Aubrey, Summer said softly, her voice barely audible over the rustle of silk. Is all this really necessary? The open house next week, if we make a scene, what will people say about Dad and Mom? The press. Summer, I said, setting my teacup down with a light click. Look at me. She turned her eyes toward me in the mirror. Our parents kept your background quiet to protect you from fake friends and opportunistic sycophants, I said, my tone fierce yet tender. They wanted you to have a normal childhood. But their protection was twisted into a weapon by people who had no right to even stand in your shadow. You didn't cause this trouble. You endured it. And enduring injustice isn't kindness, Summer. It's permission. Summer bit her lip, a teardrop brimming at the corner of her eye before she quickly wiped it away. Mrs. Miller told me, she said Pearl was fragile. She said if I exposed them, Pearl would be ruined, and it would be my fault because I had everything and she had nothing. Mrs. Miller is a thief who used your empathy to rob you of your youth, I said coldly. She built a fortress of lies out of your softness. Next Tuesday, we tear it down. Every single brick. At that moment, my phone rang. It was Jordan. Miss Sterling, Jordan's voice came through crisp and clear over the speaker. We've completed the deep dive into Pearl Miller's digital footprint and bank records. You're going to want to see this. Go ahead. Over the past 30 months, Mrs. Miller opened a secondary offshore account using a forged authorization seal from the Sterling Overseas Education Foundation, Jordan reported. She's been diverting roughly $15,000 a month under the guise of operational expenses for student welfare. That money was routed directly into an account used to pay for Pearl's private writing lessons, designer clothes, and social media promotion agencies. I closed my eyes briefly, letting the sheer scale of the betrayal sink in. It wasn't just vanity. It was systematic, calculated embezzlement. What about the biology modeling competition? I asked. We interviewed the head of the competition's regional review board this morning, Jordan said. It turns out Pearl didn't just use Miss Summer's notes. Mrs. Miller actually paid a visiting judge $20,000 from the Foundation's account to disqualify Miss Summer's preliminary submission on a technicality, claiming her research references were plagiarized from Pearl's notes. Summer gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. My research was called plagiarized. Is that why Mr. Harrison told me I couldn't enter? Yes, Miss Summer, Jordan said gently. They stole your work, framed you for cheating, and then awarded Pearl the first-place recommendation to boost her college application to Ivy League schools. The room fell completely silent. The Taylors paused, sensing the sudden shift in atmosphere, and discreetly bowed themselves out of the suite. Summer stood on the pedestal, her chest heaving as tears finally broke free, cascading down her cheeks. But this time, her eyes weren't filled with fear or shame. They were filled with an icy, waking rage. She took my work, Summer whispered, her voice trembling with a terrifying new clarity. I spent months in the lab. I didn't sleep for 3 weeks. And she called me a cheat. She looked at me in the mirror, her stance straightening, her shoulders setting square. Aubrey, she said, her voice steady and absolute. Don't hold back. I smiled, standing up from the sofa to wrap an arm around her shoulder. I never intended to. The days leading up to the Foundation open house passed with an eerie, tense quiet. To the outside world, nothing had changed. Mrs. Miller continued her duties at the guest house storage, though Mr. Adams had quietly assigned 3 security personnel to shadow her every move under the pretense of estate inventory maintenance. Pearl, meanwhile, was riding the crest of a wave she believed was entirely of her own making. On the school forum, her supporters had whipped themselves into a righteous frenzy. Pearl was cast as the tragic, brave heroine, the humble benefactor's daughter under attack by an ungrateful charity case. On the eve of the event, Pearl posted a photo on her public social media page. It showed her standing on the stage of the school's grand auditorium, holding a podium mic during technical rehearsals. The caption read, "Truth lightens the heavy heart. Tomorrow, I represent our Foundation's true mission. Kindness will always prevail." It received over 5,000 likes within 2 hours. That night, Mrs. Miller stood in her small, luxurious apartment above the guest house garage. She was furiously stuffing gold jewelry, designer watches, and envelopes of cash into a leather travel bag. "Mom, what are you doing?" Pearl asked, standing in the doorway, wearing an expensive silk robe. "Why are you packing? Tomorrow is the open house. The principal said I'm opening the ceremony with the Foundation address." Mrs. Miller turned around, her face pale, deep dark circles carved under her Eyes. Pearl, listen to me. We need to leave. Tomorrow night, after the event. We are taking the late flight to Vancouver. Pearl frowned in disbelief. Leave? Why would we leave? I'm about to get the early decision acceptance from Yale. The Sterling Foundation sponsorship on my record makes me untouchable. You stupid girl. Mrs. Miller hissed, catching Pearl by her shoulders and shaking her. Aubrey Sterling is back. She's not like her soft-headed mother or that weak little girl Summer. She brought lawyers. She brought auditors. They know about the accounts. They know about the notes. Pearl froze, her confidence wavering for a split second before her posture hardened into stubborn defiance. So what? Pearl sneered, throwing her mother's hands off. What can she do? Expose us? If she exposes us, it damages the Sterling family's reputation. Everyone in the city thinks I'm the Sterling heir. If they admit their own housekeeper's daughter fooled the entire school board for 3 years, they'll look like the biggest fools in the country. They won't risk the scandal. Mrs. Miller stared at her daughter, horrified by the monster of arrogance she had bred. Besides, Pearl continued, a cold, calculating smile playing on her lips, the whole school hates Summer now. Even if Aubrey speaks up, everyone will just think the rich Sterlings are using their money to bully us. I've already set the narrative. The public always side with the underdog. Pearl. Stop being so paranoid, Mom, Pearl said, turning back toward the mirror to check her complexion. Tomorrow, I go on stage, I deliver my speech, and I secure my place in society. The Sterlings wouldn't dare touch me in front of 500 donors and the press. Tuesday arrived with a crisp, clear autumn light that turned the amber leaves around Sterling Heights Academy into brilliant fire. The school's grand auditorium was packed to absolute capacity. Over 600 attendees, students, faculty, prominent alumni, board members, and city journalists filled the velvet-tiered seating under the dazzling glow of massive crystal chandeliers. In the front row sat the school board, along with Principal Davies, who kept adjusting his silk tie nervously. On stage, a grand podium was positioned before a massive, high-definition LED projection screen used for institutional presentations. Pearl sat in the designated student honors box to the left of the stage, wearing an understated yet immaculate pastel pink dress. She radiated grace and humility, nodding politely whenever faculty members smiled at her. Beside her sat her mother, Mrs. Miller, dressed in a muted gray suit, looking tense and sweating lightly despite the cool hall. To the right of the stage sat Summer. She wore her uniform, but it was tailor-fitted to perfection, her hair pulled back into an elegant, dignified knot. She sat perfectly still, her spine straight, her posture mirroring that of an aristocrat. Classmates in the rows behind them whispered constantly. Look at Summer, sitting there like she belongs. Pearl looks so calm, so refined. You can really tell who was raised with real family values. I heard Pearl's family is donating another $1 million to the sports complex today. At 10 a.m. sharp, Principal Davies stepped up to the podium, tapping the microphone. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, and students, the principal began, his voice booming through the auditorium speakers. Today marks our annual Foundation Open House, a celebration of philanthropy, educational excellence, and our long-standing partnership with the Sterling Overseas Education Foundation. Applause erupted across the room. Pearl smiled softly, bowing her head in modest acknowledgement. Today, Principal Davies continued, we are particularly honored. For the first time in 4 years, the senior vice chair of the Sterling Foundation has returned from overseas to personally oversee our annual review and deliver the keynote address. Please join me in welcoming Miss Aubrey Sterling. The applause was polite, though mixed with curiosity. Most students had never seen Aubrey Sterling in person. From the backstage wing, I stepped into the light. I wore a sharply cut charcoal gray double-breasted suit, my tall heels striking the stage with resonant authority. I walked straight to the center podium, my eyes sweeping across the sea of faces with terrifying calm. When Pearl saw me step up to the mic, her smile faltered slightly, but she quickly adjusted her posture, maintaining her composed demeanor. Thank you, Principal Davies, I began, my voice clear, commanding, and echoing with absolute power through the room. Faculty, students, and guests. For over 2 decades, the Sterling Overseas Education Foundation has operated under a single foundational belief, that privilege without responsibility is empty, and that true charity seeks no spotlight. A gentle murmur of approval rippled through the older board members. When my parents first established our relationship with Sterling Heights Academy, I continued, they established strict protocols to protect the privacy Of our scholars and our family members alike. They believe that a child's worth in the classroom should be measured by their intellect and character, not their surname. I paused, letting my gaze drift slowly over to Pearl. Regrettably, I said, my voice dropping an octave into a cold, lethal tone. Privacy can be exploited. And humility can be stolen. The atmosphere in the auditorium shifted instantly. The low murmurs died down. Classmates looked at one another in confusion. In the honors box, Pearl's knuckles turned white as she gripped her program. Mrs. Miller shrank back into her seat. Today, I said, tapping the control tablet built into the podium, we are here to address a severe breach of trust, one that involves identity theft, financial fraud, and a systematic campaign of defamation carried out within these very walls. With a soft hum, the massive LED screen behind me illuminated. The screen displayed a high-resolution legal document certified by the Supreme Court of the state. Exhibit A, Trust Beneficiary Roster and Legal Kinship Record. At the very top, highlighted in glowing gold text, were the words, Summer Sterling, biological daughter of Arthur and Eleanor Sterling. Beneath it was a secondary document, marked in stark red. Pearl Miller, dependent recipient of Domestic Employees Educational Scholarship. Guardian, Hannah Miller, Household Storage Manager. A collective, violent gasp swept through the auditorium like a physical wave. Students jumped in their seats. Teachers leaned forward, their eyes bulging out of their heads. What is that? Summer is the Sterling daughter? Wait. Then who is Pearl? Pearl's face drained of every ounce of color. She slammed her hands onto her knees, her eyes wide with unadulterated terror as she stared at the giant screen. No, Pearl whispered, her voice cracking. No, this is a mistake. Silence in the hall. Principal Davies yelled, rising from his seat, but no one listened to him. The noise level was deafening. I didn't wait. I tapped the tablet again. Exhibit B, Digital Forensics and Forum Audit. The screen shifted to reveal a massive chart mapping IP addresses directly to the anonymous forum posts that had bullied Summer for 3 years. Below it were side-by-side screenshots of Pearl's Instagram posts, showing her in the Sterling greenhouse, wearing Summer's clothes, posing in front of the Sterling mansion, matched against official estate security logs showing her true residential status, guest house garage apartment unit B. For 3 years, I declared, my voice cutting through the chaos like a silver blade, Miss Pearl Miller systematically utilized access granted to her mother as a domestic employee to misappropriate property, pose as an heiress, and foster a campaign of severe psychological harassment against my sister, Summer Sterling. The room was in absolute uproar. Oh my God, a student in the third row gasped. Pearl is the housekeeper's daughter? She wore Summer's clothes? She stole her life? Look at the forum IPs. It was her posting all those horrible things about Summer. Pearl stood up frantically, her chest heaving. It's a lie, she screamed, her voice shrill and breaking. She's lying. She's using her money to frame me. Mom. Tell them. Tell them. Mrs. Miller covered her face with her hands, sobbing uncontrollably, unable to utter a single word. Sit down, Miss Miller, I said, my voice flat and terrifyingly steady. We are not finished. I tapped the screen a third time. Exhibit C, Intellectual Property Theft and Financial Embezzlement. The screen split into 2 columns. On the left was Summer's original hand-annotated research paper for the National Biology Modeling Competition. Timestamped 8 months prior. On the right was Pearl's winning submission, an exact, word-for-word copy. Below the papers were bank transfer receipts from the Sterling Foundations. Audited accounts, showing a $20,000 bribe authorized by Hannah Miller to disqualify Summer's original paper. The academic honors claimed by Miss Pearl Miller were stolen, I said. The funds used to maintain her lifestyle were embezzled. As of 8 a.m. this morning. Formal criminal complaints for grand larceny, identity fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty have been filed with the district attorney's office. Right on cue, the heavy double doors at the back of the auditorium swung open. For uniformed police officers, accompanied by Mr. Henderson and 2 legal clerks, walked down the center aisle. The audience parted like the Red Sea, every camera phone in the room lifted high, filming the entire sequence in stunning, high-definition reality. The lead officer approached the honors box, pulling a set of legal warrants from his jacket. Hannah Miller? Pearl Miller? The officer's voice rang out across the quieted room. You are under arrest for grand larceny, criminal fraud, and embezzlement. Please step forward. No. Get away from me. Pearl shrieked, backing away until she hit the edge of the stage, her perfectly manicured posture dissolving into ugly, hysterical sobs. It wasn't me. It was my mom. She told me to do it. She said I deserved to be a Sterling. Summer didn't even care about being rich. It wasn't fair. The entire auditorium watched in absolute horror and disgust as Pearl threw her own mother to the wolves right in front of the press. Mrs. Miller looked at her daughter with heartbroken despair, offered no resistance, and let the officers place her in handcuffs. Pearl kicked and screamed as she was escorted down the aisle, her pale dress wrinkled, her hair wild, her tears smearing her makeup into a grotesque mask. As she passed Summer's chair, Pearl stopped, staring at Summer with desperate, bloodshot eyes. Summer. Please. Tell them to stop. We grew up together. You loved me like a sister. Summer slowly stood up from her chair. She didn't look down. She didn't flinch. She looked Pearl dead in the eye, her posture regal, her gaze cold and clear. You were never my sister, Pearl, Summer said softly, her voice carrying through the quiet hall with absolute finality. You were just a shadow that mistook itself for the sun. Pearl was pulled away, her hysterical cries fading out through the heavy doors into the hallway, leaving behind a silence so thick you could hear a pin drop. I stood at the podium, watching the doors close. Then I turned back to the audience. The Sterling Foundation, I said calmly, will undergo a complete administrative restructuring. We will also be issuing a full, formal apology to my sister, Summer Sterling, for our negligence in allowing her to face this ordeal alone. I looked over at Summer, holding out my hand. Summer, if you would join me. Summer walked gracefully to the center of the stage, stepping up beside me. The entire audience, students, teachers, board members, stood up as one. The applause began slowly, then swelled into a thunderous, deafening ovation that shook the very rafters of the auditorium. The students who had once mocked her were now clapping frantically, their faces pale with shame, desperate to make amends. The homeroom teacher who had told Summer to be grateful and not compete stood in the second row, tears of embarrassment streaming down her cheeks, unable to look Summer in the eye. Summer looked out at the sea of people. She didn't smile with smug victory. She simply stood tall, holding her head high, reclaiming the dignity that had always belonged to her. 3 months later, the snow had fallen lightly over the city, blanketing the grounds of the Sterling estate in pristine white. Inside the glass-walled sunroom of the main mansion, a fire crackled warmly in the hearth. I sat at the mahogany desk, reading through the final legal resolutions delivered by Mr. Henderson. The legal fallout had been absolute. Hannah Miller pled guilty to grand larceny and embezzlement to avoid a lengthened trial. She was sentenced to 4 years in state prison and ordered to pay full restitution, liquidating every asset she owned. Pearl Miller, stripped of her academic credentials and expelled from Sterling Heights Academy, was barred from applying to higher education institutions under the Foundation's flag. The public exposure of her fraud broke her social standing entirely. The very clique that had once worshipped her online led the campaign to obliterate her digital presence. Her family was ruined, their debt massive, and Pearl was forced to relocate to a small town upstate to work minimum wage retail jobs while living in a rented basement apartment. The school administration underwent a complete housecleaning. Principal Davies was forced into early retirement by the board, and Summer's homeroom teacher was formally dismissed for unethical student bias and negligence. Summer's biology modeling paper was officially reinstated by the National Board. She was awarded first place with distinction and received early admission offers from both Stanford and MIT. Aubrey? I looked up from the files. Summer stood in the doorway of the sunroom, wearing a soft cream-colored wool sweater and holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. She looked radiant, her eyes bright, her posture relaxed, her quiet confidence restored and stronger than ever. She came over, setting a mug on my desk, and sat on the edge of the velvet armchair beside the window. What are you reading? She asked gently. Just closing the old accounts, I replied, closing the blue folder and sliding it into the desk drawer. Everything is finished. Summer looked out at the snow-covered garden, taking a slow sip of her drink. You know, she said softly, for a long time, I thought if I just stayed quiet, if I just bore everything without complaining, it proved I was strong. I leaned back, watching her. And now? Summer turned to me, a small, beautiful smile lighting up her face. Now I know that strength isn't enduring darkness, she said, her voice clear and unbroken. Strength is bringing the light, no matter how much it burns the people who profit from the dark. I laughed softly, reaching across the desk to raise my mug toward hers. To never hiding in the shadows again, I said. Summer touched her mug to mine, the clear chime echoing softly through the warm, quiet room. To family, Summer whispered.